Say my name. Heisenberg. You're goddamn right.
I believe that Walter White is possibly the best representation of an unhealthy INTJ in fiction to date. Before I delve into this statement, I must introduce the concept of an INTJ to the general audience, since I've made the decision to appeal to both the MBTI community and the Breaking Bad community, and we all know one of these is a lot bigger than the other. So I've made a separate video on the subject, which I absolutely recommend to anyone uninformed to watch before continuing this video. Even if you only have a vague idea of cognitive functions, I'll give a more in-depth explanation of any necessary details going forward, and obviously there will be spoilers. I believe that to maintain the order of things, we must first identify how we know that Walter is an INTJ in the first place. To skip to why he's an unhealthy one would be running before we could walk. So let's look at the function stack of the INTJ. Dominant introverted intuition, auxiliary extroverted thinking, tertiary introverted feeling, and inferior extroverted sensing. Walter having dominant introverted intuition is a rather easy conclusion to draw, even from his first few scenes. When Walter is celebrating his 50th birthday in the pilot episode, his family and friends make his fun-averse nature obvious. This shows his suppression of extroverted sensing, especially when compared to Hank, an ESTP, who thus uses extroverted sensing more than anyone. The dichotomy between the characters is obvious. Hank sat with the family, interacting with them all, truly enjoying Walter's birthday more than Walter does himself. Walter only speaks when spoken to and seems removed physically and mentally from the rest of the group. Hank is entirely grounded in reality, while Walter is, presumably, stuck in his world of thoughts. As the show goes on, his introverted intuition only becomes more and more obvious. His conflict with Gus, another INTJ, only emphasizes this. The two are in a constant chess game. Their conflict isn't a physical one. It's the two of them attempting to plan ahead to corner each other. Neither of them becoming physically involved unless absolutely necessary, which is the case for Walter more often than not. However, he shows obvious disdain for this necessity.
But you can't. You can't kill me. Because Jesse wouldn't cook for you if you did. That's it, isn't it?
Now that we've cleared up the fact that Walter has dominant introverted intuition and inferior extroverted sensing, we need to choose between INTJ and INFJ. The difference between the two is found in their auxiliary and tertiary functions. The INFJ has extroverted feeling and introverted thinking, while the INTJ has extroverted thinking and introverted feeling. While it could be argued that extroverted feeling is present in Walter, since he has a clear dedication to maintaining his family and their safety, Walter clearly doesn't value his place within the circle, and he's a horrible judge of how they feel, or even what their values are. He simply values his family because that's what he sees as moral, a feature that comes from introverted feeling rather than extroverted feeling. He also has a clear use of extroverted thinking over introverted thinking. His extroverted thinking is painfully obvious in the way he goes about building his empire. He sets the goal of becoming a drug lord and takes the steps to reach this goal by organizing a structure within the business and designing distribution strategies. While the use of introverted thinking could be argued based on his immense knowledge of chemistry, it's a very common trait of INTJs to have very few specific interests of which they are extremely knowledgeable. It is also clear that he doesn't have an interest in gaining knowledge for the sake of gaining knowledge. He does it as a means to an end. It is also commonly argued that Walter is an ENTJ, since his high extroverted thinking is quite clear. His extroverted sensing is also seen as being high later on in the show. However, this is the result of declining mental health, something I will further explain soon. This is also argued based on his lack of introverted feeling. This assessment is incorrect, however. While he does not display the typical empathy of an introverted feeling user, he does show the strong personal value system of one. He constantly refuses help from others, even if doing so would be the logical thing to do. He lets his values get in the way of what is logically desirable, a behavior which would be visible in an unhealthy ENTJ. However, he shows this trait even before his mental decline. further cementing his place as an INTJ. Now that we have absolute clarity on Walter being an INTJ, we can move on to his mental decline throughout the course of the show. During the first episode, Walter is diagnosed with lung cancer. This event marks a change in his attitude towards life. His life being put on a timer causes him to realise how his life had been wasted. He needs to leave some sort of impact on the world and live up to the potential that he knows he has. This realisation causes an extreme grip from his extroverted sensing. The desire for thrills and excitement that he spent his whole life denying causes him to spiral into a cycle of calculated self-destruction. Towards the beginning of the show, his unhealthy use of extroverted sensing is shown in smaller ways, punching towel dispensers, destroying someone's car, and fighting strangers. As the show progresses, we see even more incline in his risk-taking. Early in the show, we see him desperate in conflict and genuinely fearing for his life. For example, his face-off against Tuco. Whereas later on, we see him become more and more willing to face death head-on, acting smug and trying to incite Mike when he has a gun pointed to his head.
Just what the hell was that, exactly?
You might want to hold off.
Yeah? Why?
Because your boss is gonna need me. 6353 Juan Tabo, apartment 6. Yeah.
As well as a decline in the health of his extroverted sensing, there is too a decline in the health of his introverted feeling. When Walter is forced into a scenario in which he has to kill or spare Crazy 8, he faces a complete mental strain. It is seen on his pro and con list that he notes it's the moral thing to do, as a reason to spare the man. He clearly still has a connection to his morality at this point in the show. However, he's forced into a scenario in which pragmaticism is necessary. It becomes kill or be killed, and Walter chooses to kill, but very notably at extreme reluctance. As the show progresses further, Walter is seen killing several people, even when doing so is unnecessary. His moral compass is lost, and the only part of his introverted feeling which remains intact is his pride, a clear sign of the function being unhealthy. In the end, Walter's continued dangerous behaviours become the very things that cause his rise and fall. However, I think this is what he wanted, even when he was diagnosed.
You need to understand.
I have to hear one more time that you did this for the family.
I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it. And I was really alive.
We touched the walls of the city streets and didn't explain. Sadly showed us our ways. I've never asked him why.